Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Be Inspired with Mike and Tina, and welcome to our show. We are so excited to be joined today by John and Otha Reese, both retired educators and parents of winning children. And we are hopeful that today's show will inspire each and every one of you to create an atmosphere and an environment around your children where they can thrive and be successful. Come on in. Welcome and thank you for joining in another episode of Be Inspired with Mike and Tina. We are so excited to be joined today by John and Otha Reese, both retired educators and parents of winning children. We are hopeful that today's episode will inspire each and every one of you to create an atmosphere in and around your children where they can thrive and be successful.
Yes, there are many books that have been written on raising children, and we recognize as well that our children are different. Each of them are unique in their own kind of way. And we appreciate the differences that our children can be as well. And so one of the things that we want to do as we are inspiring people to thrive and to motivate their children to be successful is to discuss the techniques, discuss the opportunities that you have had in raising your children to be successful as well. So John and Otha, we welcome you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
God's given us a great responsibility in raising our children, and I know the two of you don't take that lightly as well. So before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I suppose that's always one of those challenging questions. You don't quite know where to start, where to stop. Quickly began my career, my job opportunities, giving direction to the local Head Start program. Around 20 years. And we think, though myself and the staff that was there at that time, that we were pretty much pioneers. Head Start was brand new. I think everyone was trying to find out what the program was supposed to accomplish and what the goals were, where we were going. And as soon as the guidelines were completed and we had at least a highway, so to speak, to follow. And we took great pride in helping them to grow the Head Start program. 20 years, I realized now is a long time. Following that, I had other job opportunities, and I'd like to skip over those. Otha and I, interrupt myself to say Otha and I were blessed to have an opportunity to own a convenience store. So a little fun along the way. But ended up retiring and got bored. Went back to work and was fortunate enough to land a position at Edison Intermediate School. Went for a year in my own plan and stayed for 7. Another extremely rewarding opportunity, and just wallowed in all that was positive while I was there at that school and met so many wonderful people. That pretty much wrapped up what I consider a quick summary of my employment opportunities, and just nothing negative. Nothing negative.
And I would say that my entire career was part of what I did for all of my 45 years was in education.
Wow.
Of course, I taught elementary, intermediate, high school, taught at IUSB, became an assistant principal, and then principal of John Adams High School, where I retired. So I am happy to report that my entire career was donated to teaching and working with children in the community, and hopefully made a substantial contribution to the community and to the children in whom I served.
Now, how long have you all been married? How many children do you have?
46 in another 2 days.
46 years, and we have 2 daughters, Latanya and Kinye, and we also have 2 grandchildren,
Oh, wonderful.
Dexter and Olivia.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, our show is about raising winning children and really letting parents get some skills and some tips and techniques on really how to do that. As Mike said, there's all kinds of books on it, and nobody really knows really how to do it. Sometimes it's just trial and error, I think. But I want you all to get a pen and pencil in your hand, because I believe that John and Otha has some good tips and techniques for us on today. So when we talk about winning children, what is your definition of a child that wins? I mean, we know there are children that compete, and there are children that are smart, and children that can do things in the arts. What is your definition of a child that wins?
I think basically a winning child is, number one, a happy child.
Okay.
A child who is happy from within, based on their environment. We, of course, raised our children in a very Christian home. We are Christians, and we set the tone that they were happy, they were motivated from within, not so much that we motivated them. Of course, we had standards, and we set the tone that these are the things you will do in order to be successful. But ultimately, to know who they are from within and know that they have a strong support from their families. And the kids took it from there.
Oh, wonderful. That is an excellent, excellent tip and technique for us. And when we come back, we're going to hear more about how to raise winning children. Welcome back to Be Inspired with Mike and Tina. We are joined by John and Otha Reese, and they have been telling us about what it means to be a winning child. And so now we'll talk about maybe their interaction with their own children in their homes and how their children have become winners.
Sure, John and Otha, you've shared with us and our listening audience as well that you have 2 children of your own. Can you share with us the dynamics and the interaction that you've had with your children in regards to their worth and their success?
I think a lot of it began at the end of their day. Well, the morning was important, but the morning was somewhat of a routine. Breakfast, of course, that was not rushed. I think that's important too. No one's running through the house and into the kitchen and woofing down, so to speak, eating breakfast hurriedly. So the day started, unbeknownst to me, it was just the way the house operated. We thought it was important for them not to be reaching for the coat, but they were just casually, we got another 10 minutes, go get your coat and go get the rest of it. That was the morning routine in the house, and it seems to me the day then began to unravel and smooth itself out as we went on with the day. I think the bottom half of the day kind of got turned over to you until I arrived at home. And by that, I mean that Otha would pick the kids up from school, meet them after school, be with them after school. And so there was homework and quiet down time from the school and all of that communication between the girls and their mother. I think made a big difference in the way the afternoon began to evolve. They knew that they were not going to be in turmoil and anyone yelling or fussing at them. It's just a routine. You got homework to do, you got to change your clothes, and you got to relax and have a snack, and those kinds of activities I think help to settle them down and know and allow for them to have good, solid conversation with their mother about their day. And so there was that friendly communication. I think that makes a difference.
I agree with John. Our mornings always start peacefully. We made it a point that we got the kids up in a timely manner so that it was calm in our house. They knew the night before how their morning would begin. Their clothes were laid out, the homework was done. So when they got up, it was a time that we could interact without a rush. We never put a rush on our kids in the morning because we always felt that would set them off to an unsettling day. And of course, we want their day to be calm and productive. And of course, in the afternoons, as John said, I would meet them because I was an educator. My day would end relatively 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I was able to pick the kids up and deal with them here again on a very calm basis where we were able to talk and discuss how things went. And we also carried that over into the dinner hour. Of course, once he was home, we always back then had 4 people at our table for dinner. And it made a huge difference in what we discussed. They talked about what went well, what did not go well, and we were able to allow them to share openly what was going on in their lives. And we felt that made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Then homework. When our kids did their homework, there was always a space where they would go. And at that time, we knew what was going on, and they knew the expectation that if I am at this space in my home, that I'm doing homework. And I also feel that if kids do not have that place, then chances are they may or may not do that homework. I mean, it can be at a box, but if this is where you are, this is what's taking place at that time. And that was always very important to us, was to provide a space for them to do homework so they understand that everything else shuts down until these things are done. So
Mike, let me
that was
just
good.
interrupt because there is a book called Parenting is a Contact Sport by Joanne Stern. And she talks about how important it is to build relationships with your children. And you're talking about, sitting at the dinner table, having breakfast for them, being calm, creating some calmness in their life. What advice do you have for parents for staying connected or establishing that kind of relationship with their children? And how important is that to you?
I think that is extremely important, that lines of communication is always open. We were always very transparent with our children. We allowed them to raise questions and we gave honest answers, no matter what the questions were. We developed a relationship with them so they could talk to us about anything, no matter how difficult. It set a tone for them that my parents are open, my parents are supportive, and my parents care about what I'm talking about. So it was just a transparency that we established, that there are no secrets, there's nothing too difficult to talk about. So it made the relationship stronger and a positive one.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it's interesting that as we sit here and talk about it, and I'm listening to Arthur share, it wasn't by a plan. We didn't sit down and talk to one another about, now this is how we're going to deal with the girls, or this is the consequence of what we do or not. We didn't do that. It just flowed. It was just natural, and it was not with any kinds of barriers.
So there had to be chemistry between the two of you also in order to
Yes,
make that connection
it's a natural
really
kind of
work.
thing. But she talked about homework, and I wanted to get back to that very quickly and say that homework was important, but we didn't force the girls, oh, it's 5 o'clock, you've got to go into the room, you've got to sit. But she also talked about an environment, and I think the crux of all of that, you had to be quiet.
Yes.
The parents had to get out of the way and provide an opportunity for the children to be focused and remain focused until they were done. If you got done first, then you don't go and disturb the other one. But no one said that. It was a matter of respect. Because we always talked about respect.
Yes.
You're in someone else's home, you sit down, you keep your hands to yourself because you don't know.
Exactly.
It's not yours.
Exactly.
So why would you bother? You look.
Right.
You don't and the same thing happened at home. It was, though we're talking about a human interaction, it's the principle still was there. Your sister is doing her homework. She is not done. It's hers to
Right.
do. Leave her alone. So the
Yes.
house was quiet.
Wow.
What the big sign in the house says, okay, homework time, be quiet.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Calm environment.
And as we look back on it, we realize how important the distance was. And the girls went on to high school, to college, and whatever
Yes.
else.
Yes.
The focus, the ability to focus and to shut out the outside noises and to get it done.
This is really great. We're
Yeah.
going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to talk about those awkward teen years.
Welcome back to the show, Be Inspired with John and Otha Reese. We're so glad that you joined us. And it's been an interesting conversation as we've talked about raising children that know their worth and children that are successful. You've shared some tidbits with us. You've shared some information with us. I believe it's been helpful, not only to Tina and I, but even to the audience that's watching us on today as well. And with that being said,
Before we left, we said that we were going to talk about those wonderful teenagers that we have. You know, children go through certain stages, and by the time they're teenagers, first we know everything, and then by the time they're teenagers, parents hardly know anything, and we're irrelevant. So how do parents navigate through that phase of their children's lives?
We were extremely fortunate in raising our girls during those most difficult teenage years. I was an educator, of course. My day ended pretty much with their day. So I was able to start engaging with them as the day ended. We didn't have to wait till 6 o'clock to get together. And I think that made a huge difference. But we also instilled in our children that education was extremely important and that we valued the education, which meant it carried over into what they then valued. For us, it was an easy process to raise our daughters. And of course, I would wish that for all parents, but I know that is not the situation. But we instilled in them the value of, first of all, to be a Christian. And the lives that they led were on the heels of Christianity because that was so important to us. And we exhibit that life in our home so that our children would have that as a foundation to build their lives on. So I would have to say our teenage years with our daughters was fun and exciting.
Wow.
And I know that is one of the most difficult times of teenagers' lives, but we were always there for them. They understood the rules, and I must say they never broke them. Why and how, other than by the grace of God, they were okay kids.
So we
Love.
have to say it's because of some parenting techniques.
Some
So we have
parenting
to-
techniques.
yeah.
Well, this is getting really good, but we got to take a break, so we'll be right back. We were having a great conversation with John and Otha Reese about raising winning children. And before we left, we were talking about some of the characteristics that parents can have to raise winning children. And so, Mike, we're going to talk about some other things that are going on here around regionally and nationally about, that parents are doing,
Sure.
perhaps to, they think maybe motivate their children, or we maybe think demotivate their children.
Sure. There's a trend, John and Otha, that we see happening across the country. And that is in ways that parents or guardians are disciplining their children or trying to correct a misbehavior. And what we're finding is that they are shaming their children. Just a week ago on Facebook, I saw a situation where a child had done something inappropriately, and the parent placed the child on a major intersection with a sign discussing the misbehavior of the child and as well the signs saying, and this is something that I will not do again. Share with us your thoughts in regards on that tactic in shaming a child to correct their misbehavior.
That's you.
That's me. A lot of that's a mirror. The parent should take some of the responsibility for that behavior. Many children mimic behaviors. I think that some behaviors are learned. They have witnessed that kind or wherever else would the source come from. A lot of behaviors are hard to define as original. So there has to be something in the experience that the child is reflecting. So the parent has as much responsibility, it seems to me, for that behavior as the child.
So I think we kind of go back again to some of the characteristics of a parent. So parents, we need to take responsibility for some of the things that our children are doing.
Absolutely.
That's correct. And what we're talking about is, indeed, I just used the word, communication between the parent and the child. The seriousness of trying to find out why did you do it, and what is it I can do to help you avoid doing that again.
Sure.
But putting a child on public display is not an answer.
Sure.
That's a punishment.
And
Again, it seems to me now, I could be wrong, but that's a form of punishment, not necessarily a form of correction.
And I think as you say that, I agree with you. And I believe some of that tactic comes from the parent feeling like they have been shamed. And so, as you made mention of the mirror, they turn around and mirror what they're feeling with the child by placing them on a street with a sign, or placing them in a situation where they can be on public display in regards to the shame that the parent is feeling. Otha, you were going to...
I was going to say, we always allowed our children open communication in our home. They were always able to share with us openly about all situations, no matter what it was. We encourage that they share and share openly, because if you don't share with us, then you take that information elsewhere and you perhaps will get bad information. So I think it's always important for parents to be open and allow their children to talk and to express themselves, no matter what it is. It does make a difference.
Yeah, another way of quickly saying that is, oh, so-and-so said something in school today. And that's where children learn a lot of their behaviors. It's from their peers. So if they can come home and say, well, you know, Mom, I'm kind of uncomfortable, but here's what old so-and-so said or did. Now, it isn't tattling. It's an opportunity for me to share.
Now, we're talking to John and Otha Reese, and they've been married for over 40 years. But what about parents who are single? What do we say to them about raising winning children? Can they raise winning children if they're single, or maybe don't have any money, a lot of money to work
Absolutely. I think single parents can indeed raise winning children. It's all in how you communicate with your child. It's the rules that you establish with your children so that they know the expectations in the home. And it doesn't take money to have a winning child or children. It's the interaction that you share with your children and what you talk about when you are communicating with them. And I think it is also so important to allow open communication. We allowed for our children to talk with us about any and everything. There were no boundaries that they could not share, because we wanted to know what's going on, and that was the best way to learn about that. So a single parent can have a winning child. It does not take money. It takes patience, understanding, it takes love and support. Those things, I think, are the key for having winning children.
Yeah, I'm not talking about forced conversation.
That's right.
Yeah.
She did describe earlier an opportunity for us to sit at the table together. And you know, you're just sitting at the table and things come up. So it's not forced conversation. Not, hey, now tell me about your day. It wasn't that at all. But I think it's important for parents to focus on listening to their children and asking a question. You know, parents say, tell me what the devil's going on in your life that you would do that. But it's always the parents are saying that, making sure that they do what they're supposed to do. Right? I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. And too many times that those two definitions get crossed up. I want to be your friend, so I'm not going to put you in an awkward or uncomfortable situation.
So it's the same in both households, a single parent household as well
Absolutely.
as a
Absolutely.
two-parent household, that the child just needs attention or wants attention, and we simply should give that to them. And in regards to what you've said, showing
That's right.
and sharing the love
Absolutely.
and the
Love,
both
patience.
and the openness of communication.
And the keeping the communication open.
Gives both parties or both households an opportunity to raise a successful child and one that comes to know their self-worth
That's right.
and one that can be successful.
That's right.
Well, this has been a
right.
great conversation that we've been having about raising winning children, and we really appreciate you all joining us today.
We do. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, John and Otha,
Oh,
for joining
thank
us.
you.
Thank you for having
and,
us.
You've shared some important tidbits with us. You've helped Pastor Tina and I think as well from the things that you've shared, we'll be better parents. We're still raising 3 children in our household,
You're be
15,
kind.
13, and 11. And some of the tidbits that you've shared certainly will be imparted into our lives to help us to finish raising ours as well, with the hopes of them being successful also.
I'm inspired.
I'm inspired. And we hope that our TV audience is certainly inspired. That's what this show was about today. And John and Otha have shared some important tidbits with us that we believe not only will help ourselves, Tina and I, but help you also. And so we look forward to you coming back to be with us for the next episode. And so we thank John and Otha again. Thank you for joining the show, Be Inspired. John and Otha, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us in regards to raising successful children. We hope that you, the listening audience, as well, will take some of the tidbits that have been shared from this show and you'll use them to help motivate your child to be successful. Until next time, be inspired.